Hello, and welcome to this exciting virtual launch of the Unmasked anthology. My name is Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and I'll be the MC of tonight's ceremonies. I am the director of Draft to Digital, of business development at Draft to Digital. I should know my title by now, but I am so thrilled and so excited that Draft to Digital got to be a part of this amazing anthology. And to introduce this anthology and the festivities this evening, I am honored to introduce my dear friend and professor who teaches at Western Colorado University, Kevin J. Anderson. Kevin, welcome.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you for your help doing this, and thanks to all of you for being out there. Unlike my friend Mark there, I know what my job title is. I'm the director of the publishing concentration at Western Colorado University's graduate program of creative writing, the publishing department. See, I don't know my own title. That's you got me all tongue-tied there. Anyway, we are introducing tonight a book launch of a group project that my students put together, and just want to give a couple minutes to describe that. The publishing concentration is a new department at the graduate program of creative writing, and we're about to start our third group of students. We just have a new batch going on, and this is the second anthology launch that we did. So each year, the students put together, with support from Draft to Digital, which helps us pay for the stories, we put together an original anthology that the students create the idea of. They write the call for submissions, they design the cover, they read the slush pile, they pick the stories they want to accept, they write the contracts, they write the rejection letters. I write the checks, but they also work copy editing, and then now they're doing the marketing of the book for their second year just before they graduate. Now, last year was the very, very first anthology we produced. It was called Monsters, Movies, and Mayhem. And Mark, I think you got a little video you want to show us about some of the contributors and covers of that one. And that was our very first book that came out, and it didn't do too badly. In fact, our announcement from just a week or so ago is that Monsters, Movies, and Mayhem won the Colorado Book Award in the anthology category. So good work, first cohort of students. Not that everybody worked too hard on it, and the book turned out great. We had some big name authors, and it's a great collection of stories. But now this year, tonight, we're here for a book launch of the new anthology called Unmasked, Tales of Risk and Revelation. And I'm going to let Mark play a little video for that now. I think
my mic is muted, and it works better when I'm unmuted. Correct?
Yeah.
You can actually hear me. Here is the video for Unmasked to introduce it. When the mask comes off, can you handle what's underneath? When your secret identity is revealed, when the monster is unleashed, when the superhero's child has no power, when death himself is caught unawares. Pull back the mask to reveal 21 tales from seasoned and award-winning authors of magical masks, gas masks, death masks, superheroes, secret identities, disguised robots, alien symbionts, a Napoleonic thief, a swindling demon, even a hidden clown. Who will take the risk? Explore the masks we wear, the mysteries they conceal, and the price we pay when they're stripped away. Join us in our unmasquerade as we revel in revelation.
And the book is even better than the video, if you can believe that. So it's amazing. I want to give a special shout out to the 8 students themselves, the ones who are the editorial board, wading through the slush pile, reading all the submissions, arguing over which ones were best and which ones they wanted to reject. And we got some funny stories we'll talk about in a little bit about those. But I want to specifically name the editorial board, which are Kelly Adams, Erickson Holt, Deborah Keevan, Melissa Dalton Martinez, Constanza Ontaneda, Dale Sprague, Amanda Montandon, and Matt Wright. So those are the students that put all this together for Unmasked. And as you can see the URL there, that's where you can pick up a copy, hardcover, trade paperback, ebook, and our audiobook just came out. We just finished the unabridged audio that just came out. So if you can also buy it on Amazon or any other place that you want to get it. All the author proceeds, the royalty share, goes directly into supporting the publishing program at Western. So it helps us do cover art and design and everything for future years. So thank you for your support in doing that. And we're going to actually talk about how this project was put together. So Mark, you've got a first question to punt out there for our people.
Yeah, I wondered if I should bring the students up so we can then have them all on stage, and then we can ask the questions. All right, so they're just going to be popping into the stream alongside us here as we move along. It's difficult being the producer and also hosting while I'm trying to push the buttons at the same time. I think I've got everyone from backstage. Welcome, guys.
Yay! Look at my
you.
students.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. All right. So what I wanted to do is the first question was for Amanda. And the first question that I wanted to ask was, how did you come up with the theme for Unmasked?
Well, COVID was weighing heavily on all of our minds when we were brainstorming possible themes. We were also contemplating things about secret identities, big reveals, and similar ideas. Unmasked seemed to bring all of those concepts together perfectly.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. The next question I want to throw off to Deborah Keevan about just tell us Unmasked by the numbers and just the overwhelming numbers of submissions we got in. Tell us about dealing with that.
Yes, so we actually had 537 submissions, which had an average word count of almost 4,000 words per submission, which we had to wade through, get down to 100. And then from there, with the final were the 21 that are included in the anthology.
Wow. And they came from all kinds of different countries too.
Oh yeah, so we had about 10 different countries, and we did about five rounds of reading through the submissions before we got to the 21.
Wow.
Awesome. I have the next question is for Mark Erickson. Now, how did technology support you in this process, in the review process?
Well, we went through a winnowing process to choose which platform we would use to handle submissions. We ended up with a gateway called Moksha, and this is a platform that previously supported periodicals, and so they were ready to handle a lot of readers and a lot of writers. And so, like Debbie said, we received hundreds of submissions, and it was great because you could log on there with your own password and see, you have 232 stories waiting for you, Mark, Eric. I go by Erickson Holt, my professional name, that you have not yet read. And so every day we try to whittle away at that total, and it was great to be able to keep it together. And then as we began selecting, we used Google Sheets. So technology, obviously Zoom, our entire program was handled over Zoom. So without technology, none of this could have happened.
And as you can hear there, Mark has produced a sequel, and it's a very nice sequel going on, and very happy to participate in our book launch here tonight.
This is Kingston. He was born during the pandemic, and he has a very interesting story of his own, so we'll save that for the sequel.
Well, he'll have to write it up himself and make it a best-selling memoir. If he's fussy, maybe hit your mute button if it goes. But right now, we're fine. I'm going to throw the next one to Constanza. So tell us about the process that you followed in selecting the stories from the anthology out of this huge slush pile that you had to work with.
Sure. So once we'd whittled it down to about 30, we started, again, meeting on Zoom and discussing, well, we've got 5 superhero stories. That's not going to work. We got to whittle that down. Or there's too many of the authors are of this one gender. So how can we balance that out? We wanted to really get as much diversity into the anthology as humanly possible. And ultimately, we agreed on a lot of stuff, but if we were really passionate about a story, we really had to advocate for it, and it usually worked out.
Great. Mark?
That's fantastic. Yeah, so I have the next question is for Dale. So I'm curious, how did you work on this project with the authors, with the contracts, with the copy editing? How did all those logistics work?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So once the duels, cage matches, and voting were completed, and the finalists were finally determined, it was time to issue contracts. So each student created a contract, determined the proper payment to the author, mailed the contract off to the author, and was responsible for getting that signed contract back to Kevin, because everything had to be legal and taken care of. And for my part, this went rather smoothly. The next step then was to do any necessary editing for the story submitted. Now, most of our stories were very clean and required only small changes. But in one case, I had a story from an English author. And since our publication was in the US, I personally had to edit his English spellings and convert them to American English spellings. And that was an interesting aspect of publishing that I was not previously aware of. Now, while sometimes for Kevin, the editing process can be a challenge, we had a great group of authors who responded quickly and were a pleasure to deal with, even in the case of my English author.
Excellent. So now that we've actually picked up all these stories and we dug out the little nuggets of gold out of everything that's there, for you, Matt, how did you decide what order to put the stories in the anthology? How did we arrange those?
Yeah, I know we each had our own say in how to order each story in the anthology. One of the things that I did was I color-coded each of the stories and I arranged them by color. And each color represented a genre, or if it was a humorous story, I would color it a different way, and so that not each story, like each humorous story, weren't clumped together, so they were evenly spaced out. But I know we each had a say in that, and that was just my method of trying to figure out which stories go good together and which ones should be spaced apart, that sort of thing.
Right.
And the next question I have is for Kelly, because we all judge things by these, but I want to understand the process that you used to come up with the cover in terms of the cover theme. What was the approach you guys took for that?
Well, we started by going out to different stock image sites like Shutterstock and Adobe Images, and we each selected 2 that we felt fit in with the theme. And it was so interesting to see all the different interpretations of our theme in visual format. And then we discussed what we came up with, whittled it down to things that, took things out that maybe didn't quite fit, or maybe where we duplicated images. And then we did several rounds of voting, and that helped us come up with our final cover image. And we each sort of worked on different fonts to make it look great.
Wow. Thanks, Kelly. And the last one's for Melissa. You had 8 editors plus an executive editor. How did you come up with the exact wording for all the back cover copy and the advertising copy? How do we work that out?
Well, one of the great things about our team is that we were all really on board together with what our vision was for this anthology. And so while we were putting together the anthology call out or request for stories, we were able to come up with some keywords and things that we were looking for. And so when it came to the marketing copy, we were able to pull those same keywords from our call for submissions to put into our story back cover copy. And I think that was something that was really nice, is we all worked really well together with that. And for those of us that were the students, it was nice to defer to you, Kevin, because you were able to come in and make that executive decision, which I feel like everyone had a big part in that back cover description.
Right.
That is awesome. Do we have time for a bonus question? Because I'm really itching to learn about some slush pile stories.
Oh yeah, let's do this. Let's just run one slush pile story each. We'll just go in the same order we just asked the questions with. So, go, Mark. Pick. All right, Amanda, tell us a slush pile story first.
Oh, sorry.
I can remember a few of us talking about the stories that really made us cry and made us laugh, and figuring out which one of those we thought would best represent the idea of Unmasked.
Cool.
Awesome. And Debbie's up next, I believe.
Yeah. So my story, I'm very methodic in the way that I approach our project, and so I knew when everything was closed how many stories we had, and I mathematically divided how many stories I had to read each day so I would never be behind. And I finished on Sunday night and made a Facebook post like, woohoo, I'm done. And then Kevin came back and said, there's 150 more stories. It's the only time I cried throughout the whole project.
Yeah, we called Debbie our spreadsheet maven because she was really the data cruncher there. Let's see what next. Mark Holt.
Yes.
Story.
So a lot of people, when they share slush pile stories, they talk about horror stories, but I gave everybody a fair shot. I read a lot of terrible stories to the bitter end, spent way too much time. And one of my stories, consequently, I had probably 3 stories on my must-have list that didn't make it in. And so I got to write those rejection letters. And I wrote the kind of rejection letter that I would want to receive. And as a result, Kevin got a big thank you for my rejection letter from 2 or 3 different writers. And he said, hey, Mark, great job on those rejection letters. You're really making people feel great about being rejected. Makes me wish that I could write my own or edit my own anthology, because I would love to publish. There are probably, 10 or 15 stories that are publish worthy that we could write a whole other anthology along this theme with the wonderful stories that we had to reject.
Fantastic. That is always a case when you're reading from some great submissions from great authors. I think Constanza, you're up next.
So because Mark's rejection letter was so amazing, we all copied it, and I got some really heartfelt, awesome, thank you for your rejection letter. It's so amazing. But I also got some hate mail. That's my story. So authors out there, don't write hate mail.
Yes, in fact, when Constanza got that, I had to frantically go back and look to make sure that the editor's email addresses were not going out to the authors, and they weren't. We didn't want anybody to have contact because this was a scary email. Let's see, Dale next, a slush pile story.
So the one I'm going to share was because of the way Moksha worked, I tried not to look at the average rating for a story before I read it so that I wouldn't be influenced. And I remember on one story, I loved the story. I gave it a good rating, and I hit that button to submit my rating, and it came back, and everybody else didn't like it. And it made me kind of question my own judgment. But I ended up we had a Facebook group, and so I kind of put my copywriting skills to use, and I made my case for that story and a couple of other ones. And this particular story, after others took a second look at it and read it, it actually made the anthology, and that made me feel really good.
That's awesome. That is amazing when something like that can happen. I think, oh my God, I lost track. Who's up next? Is Matt up next?
Matt's
for a rejection story.
Yeah, I don't exactly have a specific story, but I know in the past, before this program, I've done something similar when sifting through submissions, and I've done the same thing before. And this time around, it's been a really interesting experience. And we talked a little bit about the technology, and the technology has just been fantastic and helping us coordinate and work as a team. And I think that's what I remember the most, is just being able to work as a team. And even though there was, we had some brawls about some of the stories, but the cooperation and just we really wanted to make this the best anthology with the best content, and I think that's what I'll remember the most.
Great. And Kelly, what's your story?
Well, I have never in my life been so grateful that I'm a fast reader, going through 500 stories. And I was actually surprised that so many of them were so great, because you, Kevin, prepared us for so many of them being bad. And I was pleasantly surprised. But there were some that came through that they obviously didn't read the instructions, had nothing to do with the theme. It was pretty shocking. You kind of wondered how they even got the right email to submit the stories.
Awesome. And Melissa, bring us home with your slush pile story.
Okay, so I'll kind of piggyback a little bit off of what Kelly said, but I think perhaps I was the meanest or the strictest, because I looked at the very clear story submission guidelines where we expected a particular 12-point font and 1-inch margins and some of those things. And when it came to the end of our submission deadline, we had over 530 plus stories to read. So for those that are looking forward to submitting to anthologies, double, triple read the guidelines, because I had to go through those ends and just auto reject some that didn't follow the guidelines. And I was sincerely shocked at how many didn't follow simple guidelines. And so that's something that I would say with any slush pile reading, when any publisher has to go through slush pile, they're always going to have something that's an auto reject, which means they're not even going to have time to read the entire story because they didn't follow the very simple guidelines. And there were a lot of those where we needed to be strict because we had, again, over 500 stories. So I was shocked. And what Kelly said were some had stories that had nothing to do with the title. So don't just copy and paste any story you've ever written and submit it. Make sure it actually fits the guidelines of the story.
Well, and on that, I'll throw in my own story, because it's right along that I had one that came in. Remember, it's unmasked. It's stories about masks and unmasking and stuff like that. I had somebody send me 7 drawings for Christmas card art. And I looked at that and I went, what on earth does this have to do with unmasked? And so I didn't even send that on to the students. I just wrote a polite but terse letter saying, we're not looking for Christmas card art. Please read the guidelines before you submit. And the person responded by sending me a discount coupon to a Carson City, Nevada brothel. So what on earth is that all about? So anyway, let's just do one last quick thing. We're going to do a lightning round back again, straight through the same order of people. Just a one-word rapid fire. How did it feel the moment you opened the box with your books inside? Amanda.
Squee!
That's good.
Debbie.
Awestruck.
Mark.
Happalicious.
Constanza.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
That's not one word. Follow the guideline. Dale.
Amazing.
Matt.
Shocked.
Kelly.
Exuberant.
Melissa.
Exciting.
Awesome. Thanks. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put everyone back I'm going to push you off into the wings backstage, and Kevin's going to talk about another exciting part of the program. So as I slowly remove everyone, except Kevin and I, Kevin's going to talk a little bit about the
Sure.
another part of the program, an exciting part of the program. Let's see if I can find. There we go. The two of us.
Just the two of us. They have all been sent into the Twilight Zone. Well, so the Unmasked anthology is the group project where all the students work together as an editorial board, where they put together the whole book, and you've just heard about that process. But for their solo projects, each one of them had to select a public domain novel, a classic book by Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, something like that, something that's in the public domain or out of copyright. And they did all the steps of reissuing those books. They acquired the text, they proofread the text, they designed the interior of the book, they designed the cover, they laid it out, they wrote the cover copy, they did all of the work hands-on, start to finish, to produce these classic books. And we're going to take just a couple of minutes before we wrap up. We're going to roll through the students and they will tell you about their solo project. So we're going to bring up one at a time. And the first one is Kelly Adams, who's going to tell us about her project. So Kelly.
All right, so hang on. I got to make Kelly center stage here first because we want to do this properly. And I'm going to bring up Kelly's book. Now I have to find Kelly's book right in there it is. So now we can see Kelly in her book.
Okay. In 1816, one rainy summer in Geneva, Mary Shelley, John William Polidori, and Lord Byron challenged each other to write ghost stories. The result became the Gothic horror stories collected in one stormy night. Frankenstein by Shelley, The Vampire by Polidori, and The Fragment of a Novel by Lord Byron. Get it now.
All right. Next up is going to be Mark Holt. Tell us about your interesting project.
So most people have heard of 1984 by George Orwell, but almost no one knows that it had a blueprint, a book written decades earlier, which is We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. As the first Soviet dissident, Zamyatin lost everything after writing this work, satirical of totalitarian systems, to the point where he was forced to petition Joseph Stalin himself for permission to accept exile from his beloved Russia over the alternative of never writing again. That letter still exists today. I myself created a new, more readable translation of it. And I don't speak Russian. It's included in our copy of We by Yevgeny Zamyatin, an amazing tale both on and off the page.
Thanks, Mark. Next up, Deborah Keevan.
Hi. So Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula, published The Jewel of Seven Stars, one of the very first mummy books that were ever written, where an Egyptologist discovers a tomb at the exact moment his daughter is born. What could go wrong? This refreshed version includes the original 1903 tragic ending and a refreshed 1912 happy ending, as well as a foreword by Western Colorado University and award-winning author Rick Wilbur. Get your copy now.
Thanks, Deborah. Melissa Dalton Martinez.
Project is the story of Dr. Dolittle, and I did a revised, newly illustrated edition. And this book takes 33 all-new, brilliant illustrations, and it takes the classic story, but with a twist with new magic added. So if you have ever loved Dr. Dolittle, but you want to know the origins of that story with an updated magical twist and new brilliant illustrations, this is the one to check out. Get it now.
Thanks, Melissa. Constanza Ontaneda.
Mary Wollstonecraft is considered the mother of modern feminism, but have you heard of her? She was the mother of Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, and died 11 days after giving birth to her from an infected placenta. Mother of Frankenstein contains two important works: the seminal, unfinished novelistic sequel to the philosophical treatise that launched Mary Wollstonecraft to fame, and a memoir about her life, written by her grief-stricken husband, both published in 1798. Get it now.
Amazing. Thanks, Constanza. Dale Sprague, you're up next.
In the early 1900s, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had grown tired of writing Sherlock Holmes mysteries. And by tired, I mean really, really tired. So he created Professor Challenger and wrote The Lost World. This book is the father of the Lost World genre, which led to movies, television shows, and future works in the Lost World genre, including Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. Professor Challenger knows that dinosaurs exist, but needs proof. So he goes on an adventure to South America with a big game hunter, a journalist, and a skeptical scientist to get the proof he needs. This classical edition is a reprint of the 1912 US edition and includes 16 illustrations which first appeared in the Washington Star when the story was published serially and then made into the US edition, including a foreword by Russell Davis and a filmography. This is a great addition to your personal library of classic literature. Get it now.
Thanks, Dale. And we have Amanda Spriggs or Amanda Montandon. Mark's trying to find her.
Yeah.
There she is.
Technical. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Dystopian societies have become a very popular topic recently. Many have read Orwell and Huxley and are familiar with H.G. Wells, but did you know that he explored the subject as well? For the first time in a single volume, I present The Sleeper Awakes and Men Like Gods. Get it now.
Thanks, Amanda. And last up, we have Matt Wright.
That's not Matt. That is Kevin.
Matt.
That's Matt.
That's
okay.
Matt.
From the Earth to the Moon and Around the Moon is actually two tales in one, written by the grandfather of science fiction himself, Jules Verne. Written over 100 years before the moon landing, it's an exciting and often hilarious tale of man's first trip to the moon and back. And it was surprisingly accurate. This new edition preserves over 60 beautiful and original illustrations from the original novel and can be enjoyed by kids and adults alike. Get it now.
Thanks, Matt. Well, that's a nice rundown of all the student projects that we had just published this year. You can get all of these books, as well as all the books from last year's graduating cohort at the URL that's on your screen there, wordfirepress.com/GPCW. And you can also get Unmasked, as well as Monsters, Movies, and Mayhem. And again, you can also buy it anywhere else you buy books, but in this place, more of the earnings go to help the publishing program. So this is kind of wrapping up all we wanted to show for tonight. This is virtual so that everybody could watch it. If you happen to be in Gunnison on campus, next week, exactly a week from now, the following Wednesday, which is July 21st, we will have an in-person signing at the Gunnison Arts Center. And so you can actually buy and get autographs, buy the books and get autographs from these students and meet us all in person. I just want to take a few minutes to thank Draft to Digital for giving the funding that lets us put together these anthologies and pay professional rates for the stories, which is a good reason why we got 535 submissions. So maybe that was good or maybe it's not. And also to Western Colorado University for all their support with the publishing program. And especially tonight, we had Deborah Keevan and CJ Anaya, two of the students who, as an independent study project, helped put this virtual launch together, as well as next week's in-person launch. I want to thank everybody for showing up here and watching us. I know a lot of the Unmasked and Monsters, Movies, and Mayhem authors were in the audience, so kind of wave to them virtually. And especially thanks to my friend Mark Lefebvre, whom I've known you for 15 years or something. I don't even know what it is, but the best part about him is he's also a fellow Rush fan, so that's where we connect. And thank you for being our MC tonight. I just wore a sport jacket. He went all out and wore a tux. So thank you all for being here. Mark, take us out.
Yeah, so I just want to say congratulations to all of you amazing authors working on this project, working in this program. Draft to Digital was founded in 2012, and it was born out of a desire to help authors realize their dreams, make it easier, remove barriers to publishing. And one of the things that motivates myself and the rest of the Draft to Digital team is knowing that to this date, we've helped more than 81,000 authors realize those dreams by removing barriers, by providing free services and tools that authors can use. And we are honored, absolutely honored, that we got to participate with Western Colorado University and Kevin's amazing course to bring Unmasked to the public. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And everyone, have a fantastic night.